I didn't grow much succulent before. I bought a tray from Costco and put it together in this bonsai pot. Hi, I'm Milton Chang of Bonsai Heirloom. Today we'll cover the general quick Q&A that's sent in this week. So one of the questions is that your trees always look very dry, and that's not very many leaves, and also the soil looks fairly not much of a moss. Well, first of all, I have to confess that it's always a rush before a taping to make the tree look reasonably presentable for the filming. But if it's for a serious show, bonsai show, or have somebody visiting, important visiting, I will usually try to prune the tree a few weeks in advance. So, well, basically, my approach is subtractive manufacturing and additive manufacturing. So I cut the trees back to the core, to the basic structure of the design, and then let it fill out, and then clip again. Over many times, the ramification will increase and it looks really nice. But in the meantime, the whole concept about bonsai is not to deprive of the tree, but make it grow really quickly so that it will gain strength and gain thickness and look more beautiful with more foliage. So the point is that it's a misconception to think that a bonsai is always beautiful. It's not. It looks terribly messy because it's growing wildly. But you prepare for a show in advance so that it looks nice at a show. So if I really am serious about it, I will clip a tree, let's say 6 weeks in advance, and keep clipping it as it grows to keep it tidy. Then it will really look nice 6 weeks later when people are visiting or taking a photo. Okay, so later on we'll show you some trees, maybe in the shorts, what they look like and what they look like 3 weeks later, looking really bare to start, but then looking really full 3 to 4 weeks later. And that's the process to keep your tree going. Question is that my trees look really dry, at least the soil looks really dry. Is it because it's clogging? Well, it probably is not, because I generally water my trees once or twice a day, but it may look dry on the top. So I'll talk a little bit about the drip and also moss. The drip line has regularly spacing holes, so they come out where the holes are, but the rest of it doesn't get water on the top, but it diffuses down by capillary action and then spread out at the bottom of the pot. So they do get water all over, but at the top it looks like dry. And I'm saying the last time that I think the drip line is not, it's a little bit worrisome because I worry about it clogging even though the water here is very soft. So I'm switching them over to the spray system, which would not look dry on the surface. So I used to use a drip line, and the problem with drip line is that they may clog, even though the water here is very soft. They never clog on me either, but I worry about it. So I'm now switching to the drip line, the sprayer. And I waste a little bit of water because some of it goes out of the pot, but that's life. But it keeps a little bit more moist all over the surface rather than where the holes are. And it overwaters a little bit, but it's perfect for the tree. You never overwater. The word overwatering is the word for root rotting. And root rotting is not because of overwatering, it's because of lack of oxygen. Like the soil is too gummy, And as far as moss goes, I don't really bother to keep it really wet during the summer months until it's ready for a show. So if you want to keep it green and nice in the summer months, what I would suggest you do is the following. Add a top layer of topsoil to the top, because that tends to retain moisture a little bit better, or maybe even add a little bit of a vermiculite. And then use chicken manure spread over, or spray chicken manure liquid over the soil so that the moss will really thrive on that, and then it will look green all year round. But that takes a little bit of work, which is not my main focus. My main focus is to develop the tree to look nice. And then the final step, I'll clean off the bark and the trunk and all that to make it look really nice, show ready, okay? So again, it takes a little bit of preparation to make the tree look nice before the show, several weeks in advance, and continue to clip it. Like this tree, I will later on take it out of the pot and make it as part of my forest. But you can see I threw these moss here before. The technique I talk about is to grind up the moss and then spread them, dry out the moss and spread them. And in this particular case, I add a little bit of a more topsoil or sandy loam for the top, on the top. And then I add a little bit of a chicken manure powder or liquid so that the moss really grow fast. And you can see, even this is the middle of the summer, it's nice and green. But I didn't make an extra effort to do that. So this part is not so green, but this part, when it gets a lot of water, it's quite green. So that's what you can do by adding some topsoil so to retain more moisture, water it more, and use liquid fertilizer or something, fertilizer like a manure to enrich the soil on the top. And what I do is I spread the powder from dried out moss to make it spread quite evenly. It looks like a lawn. And here's another example where this part was actually pretty brown, but I water a little bit more and you see how green it is. It's like a lawn. So moss is very easy. All it takes is a lot of water and keep it moist, okay? So the question is basically, what do you do to get your trees show ready? I think sometimes people say it has to be a year in advance. Well, in fact, it's many years to get a tree ready for show, right? That means very few of my trees I feel is good enough for show, even though I've been working on them for a long time. So you pick a tree, or 2 trees or 3 trees that you want to show for the year, and you start to working them to fine tune them. And then about a month or 6 weeks before the show, you clip it and then let it grow out so that it will be nice and green. Otherwise, it's very bare right after you clip it. And in 4 to 6 weeks, it would fill out quite nicely. And then you'll be show ready, okay? Well, the question is, I have a couple small junipers, a couple inches tall. How do I develop it into a major bonsai? Well, some of my bonsais I mentioned are 25 years old, but so for your tree, I think it will probably be, depending on your objective, if you want to make it a shohin, maybe 5 years will look pretty good. But if you want to make it into a juniper of this size, maybe 5, 10 years. And if you want to make it to this size, maybe 10 or 20 years. So it depends on your objective. And definitely growing in the ground with a lot of fertilizer and lots of water is the way to go. But on the other hand, if you don't have that, then put it in a 5-gallon can, 1-gallon can to start with, 5-gallon cans and 10-gallon cans. Move it up with good soil and fertilizer and water. That will be fine. In the meantime, what you do is for example, you let the tree grow tall to gain trunk size. And then you chop it out to encourage the bottom to grow so that you will have some bottom branch to work with. So you do cut it and trim it, let's say once or twice a year, so that it doesn't slow down the thickening of the trunk, but also give you opportunity to reshape it. So here is a juniper tree that today I will use for demonstration to make it part of a forest, in fact, the first tree of a forest. And this was started about, I would say 12 years ago, with a cutting about not much taller than this. And I put it in the ground, and that's what it looks like 12 years later. So that, to answer your question about your 2-inch tall, 4-inch tall juniper, this is what you do. And that's what it will look like 12 years or 15 years later. Well, the question is what kind of soil should I use for succulent? And if I tell you use my standard soil mix, you're probably a little shocked. I think the point is that there's a lot of misnomer in houseplants and bonsai because it's half-truth. Like, don't overwater your plant. Succulent can grow with very little water. For example, the latter is true. They can grow with very little water because they would have retains water in the branch, in the trunk. But on the other hand, what I found is that lots of water makes succulent growth very fast. Recent years, I bought succulents becoming very popular. So I bought a tray of succulents from Costco, and I put it in my regular soil and water a lot every day. And I tell you what, they grow like crazy. They flower for me, and they propagate by dropping the leaves. So yes, you can use my soil mix, and you should water regularly if you want it to grow fast. But if you don't care about growing fast, then don't bother to water it frequently. So easy. Plants are very forgiving. They survive in a wide range of conditions. So for example, I didn't grow much succulent before, but recent years, succulent has become popular. So I bought a tray from Costco and put it together in this bonsai pot. And I've been using my regular soil, and I water it a lot. And look what happened. They flower. I take the leaves out and propagate them to have many more plants. So they are really easy.